Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Today, we're going to break down the anatomy of a massive political crisis, one that unfolds in real time. What we're looking at here is a masterclass in high-stakes crisis management, or, well, maybe crisis mismanagement. We're going to focus on Eddard Stark's final, desperate moves in King's Landing. We'll analyze exactly what happens when a sudden power vacuum opens up, and see how a rigid adherence to the rules fares against ruthless, pragmatic survival. But to really understand the mindset of our protagonist, we need to dive right into the inciting incident, and it actually begins with a nightmare. To truly grasp the intense psychological weight Ned Stark is carrying at this exact moment, you have to picture where his head is at, right before the crisis hits. He's dreaming that he's walking through the dark crypts beneath Winterfell, a place he's walked 1,000 times before. The Kings of Winter are watching him pass with these terrifying eyes of ice, the dire wolves snarling at their feet. Finally, he reaches his sister Lyanna's tomb, and her statue whispers to him, "Promise me, Ned." She's wearing a garland of pale blue roses, and her stone eyes are literally weeping blood. It's this suffocating, ticking clock nightmare of pure guilt. And then, boom, he violently jerks upright. His heart is absolutely racing, blankets tangled everywhere. The room is black as pitch, and someone is just hammering on his door. The waking nightmare of the Red Keep has officially begun. Section 1. The ticking clock. King Robert has finally returned from his hunt, and Ned is abruptly summoned into this incredibly compressed, chaotic time frame. Groggy, basically just pulled out of bed, he throws on a white linen tunic and a great cloak. His plaster-sheathed leg is throbbing in pain as he's escorted across the dark bailey. They enter Maegor's Holdfast, this massive castle within a castle with 12-foot-thick walls. And you know something is dreadfully wrong because Sir Barristan Selmy is standing guard looking as pale as his white armor. When Ned finally enters the king's bedchamber, the heat from the blazing twin hearths is absolutely suffocating. There's a sullen red glare over everything, and he's thrust into a life-or-death scenario with literally zero time to prepare. Every passing hour from here on out limits Ned's options. The room smells terribly of smoke and blood and death. King Robert is lying there, pale as milk. He's actually still wearing his boots, with dried mud and blades of grass clinging to the leather. A green doublet lies discarded on the floor, crusted with red-brown stains. A monstrous boar has ripped the king completely open from groin to nipple. Robert even croaks out, "A devil. My own fault. Too much wine. Damn me to hell." But here's the thing. This wasn't just a tragic hunting accident. As Varys astutely points out later, the king was reeling in his saddle because his squire, Lancel Lannister, who just so happens to be the queen's cousin, kept fetching him skin after skin of impossibly strong wine. It was a calculated, quiet assassination perfectly disguised as a hunting mishap. And Ned is walking right into the center of the blast radius. Section 2. The Moral Compromise. Robert kicks everyone else out of the suffocating room. Fighting through unimaginable agony, he asks Ned for paper and ink so he can dictate his final will. But Ned is sitting on a massive, kingdom-shattering secret. Robert's supposed son, Joffrey, isn't actually his son. He's the product of Lannister incest. Yet, looking down at his dying best friend, Ned just cannot bring himself to inflict that final, devastating truth. So Ned writes the will, but in doing so, he commits treason by pen. He feels entirely soiled by this deceit, thinking to himself, "The lies we tell for love. May the gods forgive me." Now, the stakes of that specific lie are incredibly high, and it's all because of the title Robert is bestowing upon him. Ned is officially named Lord Regent and Protector of the Realm. What does that mean? It's the legal command to rule in the king's stead until the rightful heir comes of age. So the crucial takeaway here is that Ned is handed ultimate legal and executive authority. He holds all the official cards. But here is the catch. When Robert dictates the words, "my son Joffrey," Ned deliberately scrawls, "my heir," instead. Think about that for a second. How does a man known entirely for his unbreakable honor survive after doing this? This single, secret alteration creates a massive legal loophole for his chosen successor, but it also places Ned in a wildly precarious position. Why? Because he is now actively, quietly plotting against the queen and the boy that the entire realm firmly believes is the next king. Section 3. The Competing Strategies. Almost immediately, Ned is presented with starkly contrasting paths to survival. As he leaves the dying king, Lord Renly approaches him in the dark. Renly's plan is pure violent pragmatism. Give me an hour, I'll get 100 swords, we strike right now while the castle sleeps, and we seize Joffrey, Myrcella, and Tommen, because whoever holds the king holds the kingdom. Now contrast that with Littlefinger's plan, which is pitched a bit later, opportunistic treason. He says, make peace with the Lannisters, marry your daughter to Joffrey, rule for 4 years, and if Joffrey turns out to be a monster, well, we deal with him then. But Ned flat out rejects the immediate tactical advantage of Renly's coup, and the reasons why are entirely based on his rigid moral reasoning. Robert isn't dead yet. Striking now would dishonor his last hours. There's zero honor in dragging frightened children from their beds in the middle of the night. And he absolutely refuses to shed blood in the halls. But let's pause and play a quick what-if game. What if Ned had just swallowed his pride, abandoned his honor for one night, and taken those 100 swords right then and there? He almost certainly would have secured the castle. Instead, he lets his strict morality dictate his moves, which gives the Lannisters precious time to prepare. Section 4. The Stannis succession board. Instead of an armed coup, Ned meticulously plots a completely lawful path. He writes a letter to Stannis Baratheon, Robert's eldest brother, revealing the incest and officially naming him the true heir. He orders his captain to sail the Windwitch straight for Dragonstone and deliver this letter exclusively into Stannis' hand. Now, Ned isn't naive. He knows perfectly well that Stannis is a hard, iron, unyielding man. By legally handing him the kingdom, Ned is knowingly inciting a massive, bloody war with Casterly Rock. But to Ned, it isn't really a choice, is it? It's simply the law. Littlefinger, of course, thinks this is absolute madness. His alternative is literally a masterclass in political survival. It's fluid, it's treacherous, and it's highly adaptable. Claim the power Robert gave you. Wed Sansa to Joffrey. Consolidate your base of power. Dispose of Stannis altogether. And hey, if Joffrey turns out to be a terrible king, then you reveal the incest later and just install Renly. It's a completely transactional, cold view of power, vastly different from Ned's obsession with lawful letters and true heirs. So, how does Ned respond to Littlefinger's treasonous offer? He brings out a physical prop. He literally unsheaths the Valyrian dagger from his waist and lays it on the table. This is the exact length of dragonbone and Valyrian steel that an assassin used to try and cut his son's throat. Ned uses this physical, lethal reality to draw a stubborn, incredibly sharp line between right and wrong. He's forcing Littlefinger to remember exactly who he is dealing with. A Stark, a man who does not forgive or forget a slight. Section 5. The Price of Honor. Littlefinger just looks at it, spins that dagger on the table, and as the blade points right back at him, he asks a question that is the ultimate narrative turning point. But when the queen proclaims one king and the hand another, whose peace do they protect? This is brilliant because it exposes the stark, terrifying reality of how power actually functions in a crisis. A piece of paper with a king's seal on it means absolutely nothing if the men holding the swords decide to ignore it. And when you look at the men with swords, the military imbalance is frankly terrifying for Ned. Cersei has over 100 heavily armed, loyal men. Jaime Lannister might literally be riding for the city right now with a massive host. Lord Renly, who just offered to help, only has 30 men in his personal guard, and he ends up fleeing anyway. Ned's own guard is severely depleted. So who holds the true power in King's Landing? The City Watch, 2,000 men sworn to defend the city. Securing these gold cloaks is Ned's absolute only mathematical path to survival. But how do you secure an army of 2,000 men when honor and a piece of paper aren't enough? Well, you buy them. 6,000. That is the transactional reality of power in Westeros. Littlefinger plainly explains that 6,000 gold pieces is exactly what it will take to buy the absolute loyalty of the City Watch. And that cold hard cash is broken down precisely. 2,000 gold pieces to buy Commander Janos Slynt, 2,000 for his officers, and 2,000 distributed among the rank-and-file men. Ned has to swallow his immense pride and actually ask Littlefinger to go arrange this massive bribe. Ned's honorable duty is forced to crash head-on into mercenary reality. He needs Littlefinger to go out and do the dirty work that his own honor won't allow him to stomach. Which leads to this incredibly piercing observation from Littlefinger. You wear your honor like a suit of armor, Stark. You think it keeps you safe, but all it does is weigh you down and make it hard for you to move. It is such a powerful line because it perfectly encapsulates Ned's tragic hero arc. His systemic flaw is that his rigid morality literally paralyzes him in a dynamic, ruthless environment. He can't pivot. He can't adapt. He can only march straight ahead, right into the trap. So we'll end this explainer on a final, pretty provocative thought for you to chew on. In a brutal, high-stakes political crisis, Is strict morality and unyielding honor actually a fatal liability? Eddard Stark held all the legal cards, right? He had the king's dying decree, he knew the true line of succession, and he had the absolute moral high ground. But as we've seen, when the swords are finally drawn in the dark, honor without pragmatism is just a beautifully crafted suit of armor that drags you straight to the bottom. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating dynamic. Keep asking the hard questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.